Some people are just built differently. They come along and completely change the game, whatever that game might be. Bruce Lee was one of those people. Long before he was a movie star, he was a martial artist, a teacher, and a philosopher who was turning heads. And between 1966 and 1968, he gave the world a front-row seat to something truly special. These weren't just performances, they were demonstrations of a new way of thinking about movement, power, and fighting. He was about to show everyone that the old rulebooks were ready to be thrown out, and he was the one to do it. It all really kicked off in 1966, at a gathering called the Jun Fan National Tournament. This was Lee's own event, a place to showcase his evolving art. We're lucky enough to have some rare footage from that day, and it's something to behold. What you see is a man moving with a kind of speed that cameras of the era could barely capture. His punches weren't just fast, they were a blur. People who were there said you couldn't even see them coming. He wasn't just throwing his hands, he was demonstrating a principle, showing that true power came from efficiency and explosive energy, not just brute muscle. This wasn't just about looking good for a crowd either. Every movement had a purpose. Bruce Lee was building his own system, which he would later call Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. The idea was simple but profound. Don't wait for your opponent to attack and then block. Instead, you meet their attack with your own, intercepting it before it can even land. This required a level of timing and anticipation that few possessed. The speed he showed wasn't just for show, it was a fundamental requirement for his entire approach to combat, and people were starting to take serious notice. What made these demonstrations so revolutionary was the context. At the time, martial arts was often very rigid, filled with traditional forms and set patterns. Bruce came onto the scene and basically said that a real fight doesn't follow a script. It's messy, it's unpredictable, and you have to be able to adapt in an instant. His fluid, lightning-fast movements were a physical manifestation of that philosophy. He was showing the world that the most effective fighter wasn't the one who knew the most moves, but the one who could react to any situation without thinking. It was a wake-up call for the entire martial arts community. A year later, in 1967, Bruce Lee took the stage at the Long Beach International Karate Tournament. This is where he would perform one of his most legendary feats, something people still talk about with a sense of awe. It was the 1-inch punch. The setup was simple. A reporter, a guy who stood about 6 feet tall, held a pad against his chest. Bruce stood before him, his fist just an inch away from the pad, a distance with almost no room for wind-up or momentum. What happened next looked like it defied the laws of physics. It wasn't just a push, it was an explosion of force. With a short, sharp jolt, Lee unleashed the punch. The reporter didn't just stumble back, he was launched backwards, flying nearly 5 meters through the air before crashing into a chair that had been placed behind him for safety. The crowd was stunned into silence, then erupted. How could so much power come from such a tiny movement? It was a perfect demonstration of Lee's understanding of body mechanics, of channeling energy from the ground up through his entire body and focusing it all into a single devastating point. It was pure concentrated power, and it became an iconic part of his legend. But the 1-inch punch was just the appetizer. At that same 1967 event, he showcased the incredible flexibility and power of his kicks. He could snap his leg up into a high kick with blinding speed, hitting a target at head height before you could even register the movement. Then he took it a step further with his jumping kicks. Leaping into the air, he could deliver not 1, not 2, but 3 distinct kicks in the span of about 2 seconds, all while airborne. It was a display of agility and coordination that seemed almost superhuman, more like something you'd see in a comic book than from a real person. These moves weren't just tricks to wow an audience, they were practical applications of his core beliefs. The 1-inch punch showed that power wasn't about a big wind-up. The high kicks and jumping kicks demonstrated that a fighter should be able to attack from any angle, at any height, with explosive force. He was proving, in real time, that his system of Jeet Kune Do was designed for total combat, using every part of the body as a weapon. He wasn't just teaching moves, he was teaching a complete system of personal expression through combat, a system built for ultimate efficiency and adaptability. Demonstrations are one thing, but seeing how these skills hold up against a resisting opponent is another. We have some incredible footage of Bruce Lee sparring with one of his students, and it's a masterclass in Jeet Kune Do. In the video, you see Bruce wearing a simple white strap, moving around his student. He's not tense, he's relaxed and fluid, just as his philosophy preached. You can see him constantly adjusting, never staying in one place. He's a moving target, gauging distance and waiting for the right moment to strike, embodying the idea of being ready for anything. As his student tries to attack, you see the intercepting fist in action. Bruce doesn't just block the punches, he parries and counters almost simultaneously, his hands a blur as he deflects and strikes in one fluid motion. At one point, he intercepts an attack and seamlessly transitions into a knee strike aimed at his opponent's head, before sweeping the student's legs out from under him, sending him to the ground. It's a perfect real-world example of his principles. He's not just fighting, he's solving a problem, using the most direct and efficient tools available to him in that exact moment. Then, in 1968, came a legendary encounter at Madison Square Garden in New York. Bruce Lee was an honored guest at a major karate tournament, and he shared the ring with a man who was on his way to becoming a legend in his own right, Chuck Norris. Norris had just won his first World Karate Championship. In the ring, the two men put on a demonstration for the crowd. It wasn't a real fight, but it was a fascinating look at two incredible athletes. Lee showcased his phenomenal speed, his flying kicks, and even some of his famous two-finger push-ups, showing off his incredible strength. The demonstration with Norris was significant because it put Lee's unconventional style right next to a world champion of a traditional art. You could see the difference. Norris was powerful and sharp, a master of his craft. But Lee was something else entirely, unpredictable, explosive, and fluid. The friendly exchange showed mutual respect, but it also highlighted what made Bruce so different. He wasn't bound by one style. He was a free-form artist, and his canvas was combat. This public sparring, both with his student and with a champion like Norris, proved that his theories weren't just theories, they worked. For Bruce Lee, martial arts was never just about fighting. It was a vehicle for self-discovery and a way of life. This is where he truly set himself apart. He was as much a philosopher as he was a fighter, and his words were as powerful as his punches. When asked about being a star, he dismissed the idea. "The word star, man, is an illusion," he said. He didn't want to be an idol, he wanted to be an actor, someone who could honestly express himself. This humility was central to his worldview. He believed that labels and ego were traps that limited a person's potential for growth. This idea of shedding the ego was at the heart of his martial philosophy. "There is no opponent," he once explained, because the word I does not exist. For Lee, a fight wasn't about you versus them, it was about a situation that needed to be resolved. By removing the I, you remove fear, anger, and tension. You become an instrument of action. He described a good fight as a small play, but played seriously. The key was to be ready, not tense. When the opponent expand, I contract. When it contracts, I expand. I do not hit. It hits all by itself. It was about becoming a pure, unthinking reaction. One of his most famous lessons came from a story about a Zen master. Lee said the master poured him a cup of tea, and kept pouring even after it was full and spilling over. The master told him, "Like this cup, your mind is too full to receive anything new." Lee took this to heart. He believed that to truly learn, you had to empty your cup. Get rid of your preconceived notions, your limitations, and your rigid styles. Only with an empty, open mind could you absorb what was useful and discard what was not. This was the foundation of Jeet Kune Do. Ultimately, all of these ideas came together in his most famous quote, "Be water, my friend. Water is formless. It can crash or it can flow, it can fit into any container." This was Lee's ultimate message. Don't be rigid, be adaptable, be fluid, and be ready for anything life throws at you, whether it's in a fight or just in your day-to-day life. It was this combination of incredible physical ability and profound, accessible philosophy that made Bruce Lee a legend. He didn't just teach people how to fight, he taught them how to live, and that's a job that never gets old.